Today I'm going to explain an American science fiction and thriller movie, The Unhealer. Released in the year 2020. Let's get started. The movie begins with an old and fragile man, Reverend Pfluger, who is doing some kind of ritual at the Indian burial grounds. Suddenly, a lightning bolt strikes which causes him to be thrown away. With a smile on his face, he then goes away, indicating that the ritual succeeds. The next day, our protagonist Kelly enters a store where he greets the manager and she also greets him. As Kelly is apparently a regular customer, he pays for some noodles, and on the way out he greets Dominique, who is apparently his partner. On the way outside, Kelly opens his noodles and seems unable to help himself. He eats the paper as well. At that moment, a group of guys get out of a car and start bothering him until Dominique shows up telling them not to bother him. But when one of them approaches Dominique, Kelly tells him not to touch her, and they respond by putting him in a trash can. Then the store manager comes outside and kicks them all out, helping Kelly, who changes her shirt and heads to school. Once at school, our protagonist finishes eating the paper for his noodles. As he takes his books and pencils out of his locker, he hears that everyone is watching the video they shot of him in the dumpster. At the top of the mountain where the old man was at the beginning, there is now an Indian doing some sort of ritual at the grave the old man had dug. At home, Kelly is sick from the eating disorder he has. The doctor explains to his mother that he needs a psychiatrist. Later we go back to where the old man is, who introduces himself as Reverend Pfluger, who tells people that God gave him the gift of healing people. Then a woman comes up and after leaving her donations in the jar, he starts asking God to heal her. Almost instantly she tells him that she is no longer in pain and starts walking without her walker. After the people leave, Kelly's mother approaches the Reverend and asks him to heal her son. He agrees and she goes to get her car so he can follow her home. As she leaves, the Indian who was on the mountain doing the ritual approaches the Reverend and introduces himself as Red Elk, offering his help in giving up the medicine, that supposed power to heal. Red Elk explains to him that he must return that power since he and his father have been for 100 years protecting it. Later, Kelly's mother and the Reverend arrive at his house. When the Reverend touches him, something happens and he begins to feel ill, so he asks if he can use the bathroom. As he leaves, he touches Kelly again, but again something happens and apparently the healing power he had is absorbed by Kelly's body, which causes the Reverend to drop dead and Kelly to have a normal appetite again. The police arrive at the strange crime scene and question Bernice, Kelly's mother. She tells them that before he died, the Reverend dropped his cigarette on Kelly's body. But when he tries to show them the scar, it has already faded. This doesn't worry the sheriff at all, as he thinks it's just another group of people who were duped by the phony Reverend. The next day, Kelly hurts his finger fixing his bike but is surprised to find that his wound healed instantly. When he sees his mother, Kelly tells her that Reverend Pfluger had not only healed him but that he had now become invincible. They say goodbye and Kelly joyfully rides off on his bicycle. At that moment, Red Moose looks suspiciously at the protagonist. Upon arriving at the school, Kelly is surprised by Dominique and Sara. She worriedly tells him that she has heard about the man who died at his house the day before and he replies that it is nothing to be afraid of. Before saying goodbye, Dominique compliments Kelly by telling him that he looks much better since the last time they had seen each other. At that point, one of the boys who always tease him shows up, so Kelly provokes him to get the bully to beat him up, but when he does, he hurts himself over and over again due to Kelly's power. Later, there is a knock on the door at Kelly's house and his mother opens it to find the father of the boy who wanted to hit Kelly, who doesn't quite understand what happened. The protagonist's mother tells him that it is impossible for him to have hit him and closes the door. It is then that Kelly tells her mother about her power and promises her that no one will hurt them anymore. The next day, while Kelly is in class, he begins to make his imagination run wild with obscene thoughts about Dominique and Sara, which causes Kelly to become aroused. What he doesn't know is that because of his newfound power, the girls also experience the same thing he does. Later in the night, the bullies start chasing Kelly, who tries to flee down the road on his bike. Although they are just trying to scare him, Brad has a fit of stupidity and speeds up, so Kelly gets hit. After the crash, Brad's face is smashed, as the power caused the same damage to be returned to him as it did to the protagonist. The police arrive and Brad's friends lie to him, saying that Kelly was daring him to run him over. Over lunch, Kelly and Dominique talk about how weird everything has gotten since the protagonist acquired his powers. Meanwhile, Nelson and his gang observe the scene and begin to make fun of them, as well as feeling jealous that such a cute and popular girl is attracted to a virgin like Kelly. At that moment, she invites him to the cinema and he accepts. Kelly is scolded at work and sent to take out the trash. While on his way to the dumpster, a strange man asks him if he was involved in the accident that caused Brad's death and Kelly says yes, but the man makes him uncomfortable by observing that he has no injuries even though he was hit by a car. Kelly tells him that he did not suffer any damage because fortunately his blow was cushioned by a bush. This prompts the man to confront him directly by asking if he knew Reverend Pfluger. Kelly becomes nervous as the man stares at him, then tells him that the Reverend went to visit him only to heal him, and immediately after that, he dropped dead. When he finished speaking, the protagonist quickly left without saying goodbye. Upon arriving home, Kelly tells his mother everything that happened with Dominique at school, and she replies that he just needed to be more confident. He then gets up from his chair and tells Kelly that he has a bad headache that hasn't stopped all day since he hasn't been able to buy aspirin. He offers to buy some and goes to the store right away. Nelson's gang is outside the house waiting for Kelly's mom to leave for work, and when they see her car move, they begin their plan as they believe Kelly is the one inside the trailer. They tie the van with a chain to one of the bricks holding the trailer and speed off. This causes the trailer to destabilize and fall to the ground, breaking the gas pipe in the kitchen. The house bursts into flames almost immediately and Kelly's mother is trapped. When Kelly arrives home, she finds the tragic scene and tries to rescue her mother, but she is already dead. Days later, after his mother's funeral, Red Moose tries to talk to the sheriff, telling him that the boy has a power that should be returned to his community, to which the policeman without much interest tells him that it is not the time for him to tell such stories. Later he takes Kelly to social services, but on the way the bullies pass by in his truck bothering him. Then Kelly realizes that the trailer was not an accident and angrily jumps out of the car to look for them. As one of them gets into the river, Kelly ties his shirt around his neck and begins to hang himself, thus reproducing that pain in Tucker. That same night, Kelly goes to find Dominique to tell her everything that happened with Tucker. She tells her that she should make them confess and not take revenge on them like that. The next day Kelly shows up in chemistry class bothering Tony, who throws a substance in her face that when mixed is acidic and makes his own face disfigured while Kelly's heals on the spot. When the sheriff arrives, Kelly escapes again. That night Sara tells Nelson that she saw Kelly eating some leaves that made him vomit, so she thinks maybe with that they can get back at him. The next day while the boys are training, Sharif checks Nelson's truck and finds a piece of the block that was under the RV, so he interrogates Nelson and Reed, but just at that moment, Kelly appears, who eats a piece of Nelson's garment and then pierces his leg with a drill, which is replicated in Nelson's leg, who takes revenge on the protagonist by throwing the liquid he extracted from the plant that makes Kelly vulnerable. The trainer then takes the gun from Sharif and shoots at the protagonist's head, which replicates the bullets in his and his son's head. Upon seeing this, Dominique goes into shock and begins to confront Kelly, telling her that her power is getting out of control and she must put an end to it all. He tries to justify himself by arguing that it is not his fault that the coach decided to shoot him, but Dominique makes him think twice by telling him that his mother would not have wanted her son to become a murderer. Kelly replies that his dream was always to be with her and that everything he has done with his powers was to make her fall in love with him. Hearing this, Dominique's eyes fill with tears and she replies that she preferred the old Kelly, as his powers have corrupted the tender boy he used to be. He tells her that he doesn't want to give up his powers and will start controlling them from now on. But the sheriff interrupts him and tells him that they can put an end to all this by going to perform the extraction ritual with Red Elk, but Kelly refuses to say that he is able to control himself. The sheriff replies that this is impossible, as his heart is completely corrupted by the evil power that dwells in him. Seeing that his friend cannot make a decision, Dominique tells him that he will have to choose between her and the power, so Kelly begins to despair and takes the gun that is on the ground to finish off the police officer, but he again insists on going with Red Elk and manages to convince the protagonist to change his decision. Sharif takes Kelly and Dominique to the Red Moose and they begin the ritual to remove Kelly's power. As they do so, the police arrive before they can finish the ritual. When Kelly and Dominique get up, the policeman shoots him, replicating the effect on the policeman and Dominique, who seconds before had kissed him, which is why the power affected her. In her last words she asks him not to give them the power and they both die. In the ambulance, the paramedics talk calmly, but suddenly one of the corpses rises and reveals that Dominique is the new holder of the power. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.